Cold rain beats against Ella Karen's back as she kneels in the mud behind the farmhouse, scooping heavy clumps of filth out of the pig pen. The storm has turned the yard into a swamp, but Martha does not care. "Move faster, girl," Martha shouts from the doorway, clutching a cracked leather belt in her fist. "If that pen is not spotless, you do not eat tonight." The belt snaps across Ella's shoulders. Fire races over skin that is already raw. She bites down on a cry and keeps shoveling. The air smells like wet straw, sour liquor, and old blood. Somewhere inside the house, the television blares a game show laugh track that does not match the way her ribs ache. On the porch, Tom leans back in a plastic chair, a cheap bottle of whiskey hanging from his fingers. He squints through the rain at the small figure in the mud. "Quit whining," he says. "We fed you, did we not? You think anyone else would put up with a useless stray like you?" Useless stray. Ella heard those words her whole life. They called her burden, mistake, curse. She works at dawn and at midnight, cooks, scrubs, hauls feed, and never sits at the table until they're done. Still, Martha says she eats too much. Still, Tom complains she breathes too loud. Ella's fingers numb in the cold. She keeps moving. One scoop, then another. 15 years in this house taught her one law: if she stops, it gets worse. Lightning splits the sky. For a moment the muddy yard glows, and she sees her reflection in a puddle. Tangled dark hair plastered to her cheeks. Thin arms. Eyes that refused to go empty, no matter how hard they tried. For years she wondered why they never hugged her, never called her their own. Tonight, she just wants to survive. Headlights cut through the rain. The sound of engines rumbles over the storm, deeper and smoother than any truck that ever came down this broken Kansas road. 3 black sedans roll up to the gate, paint shining even under the gray sky. Martha freezes. Tom sits straighter, wipes his mouth with his sleeve. Doors open in perfect sequence. Men in dark suits step out, umbrellas snapping open. A tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes walks toward the fence. His coat looks like it costs more than the entire house. He stops when he sees Ella kneeling in the mud. "Ella," he says, voice low and stunned. No one here ever says her name like that. Martha rushes forward, belt still in hand, but smile sticky sweet. "Can I help you folks?" she asks. "We do not want any trouble." A second figure appears beside the man. A woman in heels sinking into the wet ground. Her face is pale under the umbrella. Her eyes lock on Ella, and something cracks there, like glass under strain. "My God." The woman whispers. "Michael, it is her." The man draws a breath, then looks at Martha. "I am Richard Karen," he says. "This is my wife, Julia. 15 years ago there was a mistake at St. Mary Hospital in New York. Our daughter was switched at birth. We have proof the girl you have raised is our child. We are here to bring her home." The storm seems to go silent for a second. Ella stares between them, the rich strangers in the rain, and the couple who used her like a tool. Blood roars in her ears. The word daughter hangs in the air like something from a life that never belonged to her. Martha recovers first. Her warm smile hardens. "That is impossible," she snaps. "This girl is ours. We fed her, clothed her, kept her alive. If you want to take her, you pay $1 million. Cash." Tom jolts like he has been electrified. "At least 1 million. He adds. "She is strong. She works. You do not just walk away with that." Ella feels the last piece of a story she never understood slide into place. The beatings. The insults. The way they never called her daughter. She was never meant to stay. She was meant to pay. The silver-haired man's jaw tightens. "We will compensate you for reasonable expenses," he says, voice clipped. "But we will not be extorted, and we will not leave our child here." The word "our" hits Ella harder than the rain ever could. Martha grabs Ella's arm, nails biting into skin. "Say something," she hisses. "Tell them you do not want to go. Tell them we are your family." Ella looks at the farmhouse with its sagging roof, at the broken windows patched with tape, at the belt in Martha's hand. She looks at Tom, who never lifted a finger when she bled. Then she looks at the strangers, who crossed states in a storm, because a piece of paper told them she is theirs. Her fingers curl into fists. "I want to leave," she says, voice rough but clear. "I am going with them. I am not staying here one more night." Martha yanks harder. "You ungrateful brat," she screams. The nearest bodyguard steps between them, prying Martha's fingers off Ella's arm with calm strength. He moves Ella behind him, shield solid as a wall. "You will regret this." Martha spits, rain streaming down her face. "You think they want you? You think you are anything but a problem?" Ella meets her eyes. For the first time, there is no fear, only a cold, steady anger. If they throw me out tomorrow, she says, it will still be better than staying here. She walks to the nearest car on shaking legs. The silver-haired man holds the door open. The woman wipes at her eyes, hand trembling. Ella. The woman says softly, may I hug you? The question knocks the breath from her. Ella hesitates, then nods. The woman wraps her arms around her like she will never let go, and Ella feels something crack open in her chest. On the porch, Tom lifts his bottle again. You will see. He mutters. A girl like you never fits anywhere. Ella steps into the car. The door closes with a soft thud that sounds, to her, like the end of a sentence. As the sedans pull away, she watches the only life she ever knew shrink into gray, and mud and cheap plastic, until it disappears. Rain drums on the roof. Somewhere ahead, New York blazes in the dark. She does not know those streets, that house, that name. But one promise curls hot in her belly. No one will ever use her like that again. She will never kneel in the mud for anyone. Not ever. The Karen estate does not look real. The driveway is longer than the road in front of the farmhouse. The house itself rises out of perfect green lawns and trimmed hedges, glass and stone glowing against the New York sky. Ella stands just inside the foyer, sneakers leaving faint wet marks on marble. Her thrift store jeans are still damp. The bright chandeliers make her squint. Julia Karen hovers nearby, twisting a silk scarf between her fingers. We should have stopped at a boutique first. Julia murmurs, guilt thick in her voice. We should not have brought you here in those clothes. They are just clothes, Ella says. Her tone is flat, but her eyes travel over everything, counting exits, cameras, people. New place, new rules. She will learn them fast. Footsteps echo on the stairs. A girl floats down like she lives on a stage, hair sleek, dress a soft cloud of pink, necklace catching every light. She is pretty in the way magazines like. Her smile is sweet. Her eyes are sharp. Ella. Julia says, voice tightening. This is Lillian. Lillian Karen stops near the bottom step, and lets her gaze slide over Ella's worn jacket and scuffed shoes for one long, obvious second. Then she smiles, soft and kind. So you are the real one. Lillian says. I am so sorry for what happened. All these years, I have been here in your place. It must be hard to see everything you missed. The words are gentle. The message is not. You were in the dirt. I was in the palace. Ella lifts her chin. It was hard, she says. But it taught me what I will never allow again. Lillian's smile flickers. Heavy steps sound from above. A boy about 18 appears, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a shirt that probably costs more than the farmhouse roof. He leans on the railing, eyes narrowed. Keller. Richard calls. Come down. Your sister is home. Keller studies Ella for a beat, then walks down. His handshake is quick, polite, distant. Welcome, he says. It is a lot to take in. We will help you adjust. His gaze darts toward Lillian, as if checking her reaction. Ella sees it. She files it away. That night, the dining room table stretches like a river of glass and silver. Ella sits near one end. Servants glide around her, filling glasses, lifting domes from plates. She keeps her back straight and her hands still. Martha taught her, if they see you shake, they hit harder. Lillian laughs lightly at something Keller says, then reaches for the red wine. As she passes behind Ella, her wrist tilts. The glass tips. Dark liquid pours over Ella's shoulder, staining her only shirt. Gasps ripple down the table. Oh no. Lillian says, eyes wide. I am so clumsy. I am so sorry, Ella. I forgot you are not used to crystal. I mean, to this kind of dinner. Ella rises. Red drips down her arm, over cheap denim. Lillian's voice carries, not used to this, not like us. For 15 years she swallowed her anger to avoid another hit. Here, no one holds a belt. Here she has a name. It is fine, Ella says. She shrugs off her jacket with one quick motion and drops it over the back of her chair. The thin t-shirt beneath clings to muscle honed by work, to scars that never faded. She picks up a linen napkin, dabs at her skin, then turns to the nearest maid. Could I borrow a jacket? She asks. The maid blinks, startled. Of course, Miss Ella, anything you want. Ella crosses the room to a coat closet, opens it without waiting for permission, and pulls out a black blazer that fits close enough. She slips it on, flips her hair back, and returns to the table like she owns the space. Clothes get dirty, she says, looking straight at Lillian. They can be washed. What matters is whether a person stands up straight when someone tries to make them feel small. Silence falls. Julia presses her fingers to her lips, eyes bright. Richard's mouth twitches like he is fighting a smile. Keller stares, something unreadable in his expression. Lillian's knuckles whiten around her glass. I really was sorry. Lillian says softly. I heard you. Ella replies. I just do not believe you. Later, alone in the guest room that smells like fresh flowers and laundry soap, Ella sits on the wide bed and lets her shoulders finally drop. The mirror over the dresser shows a stranger in a borrowed blazer, eyes dark and focused. They think I am fragile. She whispers to her reflection. They think I should be grateful. She remembers Martha's grip, Tom's laugh, the way the belt cracked across her skin. The way Lillian looked at her like she was a stain that would not wash out. They are all wrong, she says. I did not survive 15 years in that house to be anyone's pity project. She lies down in the softest bed she has ever touched. If there is a place for her in this palace, she will carve it out herself. A week later, the past walks up to the mansion gates in dirty boots. Ella spots the shouting before she sees the faces. From the upstairs balcony, she looks down on the front drive where two familiar figures wave their arms at the security guards. Martha and Tom. Martha wears her best church dress, though the hem is stained. Tom clutches a crumpled baseball cap. Their voices carry all the way up. You cannot keep us from her, Martha yells. We raised that girl. Ella's fingers curl around the balcony rail. Her stomach twists, then goes cold. Julia steps out beside her, following her gaze. Oh no, Julia whispers. Richard said they might come. Ella, you do not have to see them if you do not want to. Ella straightens. I do want to, she says. I am tired of hiding from people who hurt me. Downstairs, Richard and Keller are already at the door. Lillian lingers in the hallway, eyes bright with curiosity and something like delight. At the base of the front steps, Martha starts crying as soon as she sees Richard. We took care of her, she wails. Fed her, clothed her, kept her alive. That was not free. You took our worker away. You owe us $500,000 at least. Tom nods quickly. $1 million is fair. He adds. She is strong. Do you know how much work she did? You rich folks can pay. Richard's jaw tightens. We offered a reasonable amount to cover her basic needs. He says. You refused. Coming here to make a scene will not change that. Martha looks past him, straight at Ella as she steps out onto the porch. There you are. Martha cries. Tell them what we did for you. Tell them you owe us. Ella walks down the steps one at a time. The closer she gets, the more she feels the old fear claw at her ribs. She shoves it down. In 15 years. Ella says, voice steady. You never once called me your daughter. Martha flinches. We fed you. Martha snaps. You fed me scraps. Ella answers. You let me sleep on a thin mattress in a closet. You hit me when you were bored. You told me I was trash. You only came here because you think you can turn those years into cash. Tom's face darkens. Watch your mouth. He growls. You think you are better than us now, little Miss Fancy Name? Ella lifts her shirt just enough to show the fading line of an old belt scar across her side. Better? She says. No, just done. She turns to Richard without covering the scar. If they want money, she says. They can earn it in court. Martha's mouth drops open. You little snake. Martha hisses. You would send us to jail after everything. Ella's voice goes colder than she knew it could. You threatened to throw me out 100 times. She says. You told me no one wanted me. Now I know that was a lie. You never loved me. You just loved the work. So yes, if the law says what you did was a crime, I will let it speak. Richard glances at Keller. Call our lawyer. Richard says. And the police. Lillian's eyes widen. Is that necessary? Lillian asks, just a hint of dismay in her tone. They are poor. Maybe we can just pay them to go away. It is not worth the trouble. Ella turns her head slowly. They taught me that when someone hits you once and gets away with it, they come back with a bigger stick. She says. I am not buying their silence. I am ending it. For a moment, no one speaks. Then sirens wail faintly in the distance. As officers take statements, Ella answers questions with simple facts. How old she was when the beating started. How often she was denied food. The night she slept outside because Tom locked the door. One officer looks sick. 15 years. He mutters. I am sorry, kid. Ella shrugs one shoulder. I am not a kid anymore, she says. Not to them. Martha screams as the officers escort her to the car. Tom curses everyone he can name. Ella watches, heart pounding, but she does not step back. When the car doors slam and the sirens fade, the driveway falls silent. Julia touches Ella's arm. I am so sorry. Julia whispers. We did not stop this. We did not know. Ella looks at her, at Richard, at Keller hovering just behind them, hands shoved in his pockets. You did not know. Ella says. Now you do. I cannot change what happened, but I can choose what happens next. Keller shifts, guilt flickering across his face. For what it is worth. He says. You handled that better than I would have. Ella snorts. That is because I had 15 years to rehearse. She says. Lillian watches from the doorway, eyes narrowed, lips tight. The moment the police cars disappear, she plasters on a sympathetic expression and steps forward. You are so strong, Ella. Lillian says. I could never stand up to my parents like that. You must not forget, though, that they did not know you were not theirs. They thought they were doing their best. Ella smiles, small and sharp. If that was their best. She says. I am glad I get a second chance. For the first time, Lillian seems to realize that the girl from the farm is not soft clay she can shape. She is a blade that learned to cut its way out. Ella's first day at Ridgeview Academy starts with stairs. The private school sits on a hill with a postcard view of the city. The students look like they stepped out of catalogs, crisp uniforms, perfect hair, polished phones. Ella walks through the gates in a blazer that fits almost right and shoes that are still too stiff. Whispers trail behind her. That is the girl from the farm. They say she grew up with pigs. She probably does not even know how to use a computer. Lillian glides through the crowd like a swan, smiling tightly at people who call her name. She stands at Ella's side, hand resting lightly on Ella's arm. Do not listen to them. Lillian murmurs. They do not understand what you went through. Ella hears the care in her voice and the poison under it. At lunch, Lillian sits with friends at the center table. She waves Ella over, then, accidentally, forgets to make room. Ella ends up at the edge, half on, half off the bench, tray balanced on her knees. So, one girl says, chin tipped up. Is it true you used to sleep in a barn? Ella spears a piece of lettuce. I slept where they put me, she says. Now I sleep in a bed big enough to drown in. Life changes. Snickers ripple around the table. Lillian covers her mouth. They are just curious. Lillian says. You are interesting. That night, Ella sits at her new desk in her new room, textbooks spread in front of her. Numbers dance in neat rows, clicking into place in her mind with satisfying speed. She reads fast, absorbing formulas and concepts almost greedily. Work made her body strong. Hunger made her sharp. No one ever let her be a student. Now, locked in this room with soft light and silence, she discovers she loves it. In class, the teachers notice. She solves equations before they finish writing them. She remembers dates no one else can pronounce. She raises her hand rarely, but when she speaks, she is right. By midterm, she holds the highest average in her grade. Ridgeview hosts a combined math and art showcase each spring. Lillian signs up for a piano performance, planning to play the same piece she used to charm donors at Karen charity events. Are you going to sign up? Keller asks Ella one evening, leaning against her doorway. Ella shrugs. I do not play anything, she says. Not like that. You draw. Keller replies. I saw you doodling in the margins of your notes. That was not normal scribbling. Ella flushes. It is just practice, she says. Keller grins. Then practice on a bigger canvas. He says. Worst case, you embarrass yourself in front of a few hundred people. That is nothing compared to what you already lived through. He is trying to joke. She almost smiles. On the night of the showcase, the auditorium shines. Parents and donors fill the seats. Lillian's piano performance goes first. She plays flawlessly, every note crisp, hair falling just right. The audience claps politely, some loudly. Julia beams. Richard nods, proud. Ella's name is called near the end. She walks onto the stage wearing a simple black dress. A large blank canvas waits on an easel under the lights. For a moment, the hall hums with low confusion. Richard leans closer to Julia. I did not know she signed up. He murmurs. Ella takes a breath. The smell of paint and wood fills her head. She picks up a charcoal stick in one hand, a brush in the other. She does not think about technique. She thinks about 15 years under a big sky, of mud and stars, of rain on her face and anger in her chest. She thinks about the way Keller looked when he joked in her doorway, half nervous, half hopeful that she would say yes to something. Lines appear. A face emerges. Strong jaw, familiar eyes, a hint of a smirk at one corner of the mouth. The auditorium goes quiet as the picture sharpens. Within 10 minutes, a portrait of Keller Karen stares out from the canvas, alive in black and white. The likeness is uncanny. She catches the way his hair falls, the angle of his shoulders, the tired determination in his eyes. The silence breaks into applause that grows into a roar. Keller's mouth drops open. Color climbs into his cheeks. Lillian's smile freezes like glass. Julia wipes a tear she pretends is just dust. Richard laughs, a short, proud sound he clearly did not plan. Ella steps back from the portrait, charcoal dust on her fingers. Paint streaks her wrist where she blended shadows. I did not grow up with tutors, she says into the microphone, voice steady. No one taught me this. I learned because I needed something that belonged only to me. I am still learning, but this is who I am. Not just the girl from the farm, the girl who survived it. The applause hits like a wave. For the first time since she stepped into this house, she does not feel like an intruder. She feels like a person taking up space she earned. Back in their row, Lillian grips the program so hard it crumples. She just drew a picture. Lillian whispers, "It is not a big deal." Keller does not answer. His eyes stay on the stage, on the girl who refused to bow. The stronger Ella shines, the more desperate Lillian becomes. At home, Richard starts taking Ella along to weekday meetings at Karen Holdings. She sits in on strategy sessions, listening more than she speaks, absorbing terms and flows that once meant nothing to her. When she finally asks a question, it cuts straight to the weakness in a deal. You see patterns fast. Richard tells her after one meeting. That is a gift. We can hone it. Lillian watches from the sidelines, face tight. One Friday, Richard leaves an important contract on his office desk at home, planning to review it after dinner. The document finalizes a partnership that will boost Karen's shipping division and employ thousands. It is worth millions. As night deepens, Lillian slips into the study. She pulls on thin gloves, just like the ones she saw in a movie. Her hands shake as she flips pages. If this deal fails, father will be humiliated. She mutters. If it looks like Ella did it, they will never trust her again. She moves numbers, alters a clause, changes a date. Her heart hammers. She saves the original and the altered copy separately, hiding the real one behind the bookshelf. The plan in her head is simple. When the wrong version causes chaos, she will find an email from Ella to a rival, faked just well enough to cause doubt. Before she leaves, she prints a letter and signs Ella's name with awkward, childish loops. The next day, Richard reads the contract and does not catch the change. The deal closes. Days later, a penalty notice lands in his inbox. What do you mean we broke the terms? He demands in a video call. The clause was clear. The partner holds up the signed version, pointing to the line. Ella watches from the doorway, stomach sinking. After the call, Richard rubs his temples. I must have missed something. He mutters. I never miss something like this. Lillian hovers near the hall, then knocks timidly. Father, she says. I think you should see this. I did not want to believe it, but. She holds out the printed letter. The words tremble just enough. In the letter, Ella complains about how slow Richard is, how old-fashioned his deals are, how easy it would be to push him into a bad contract and then take over what is left. It is blunt, cruel, the kind of thing Martha would say after too much whiskey, translated into stiff sentences. Richard's face drains of color. Ella, he calls. She steps into the study, pulse pounding. Did you write this? He asks, holding up the letter. No, she says. I would never. It is her handwriting. Lillian whispers. I found it by the shredder. I thought maybe someone tried to throw it away. Ella forces herself to breathe. I did not write that. She repeats. And I did not touch your contract. Richard looks between them. Doubt hangs thick in the air. 15 years of guilt wars with the fear of being betrayed by the daughter he just found. Before he can speak, another voice cuts in. You should check the camera, Keller says from the doorway. Both girls whirl. What camera? Lillian snaps. Keller steps into the office, jaw set. The one in the smoke detector, he says. After someone accidentally deleted files from father's laptop last month, I installed extra security. Father, I did not tell you yet because I wanted proof before I made accusations. His eyes land on Lillian. Last time I checked, Ella was in the library that night. He adds. But we can watch it again together. Richard moves to the computer with jerky urgency. Keller pulls up a feed, scrubs back through time. Grainy black and white footage appears on screen. There is the study. There is the desk. There is Lillian, creeping in after midnight, gloved hands turning pages, editing the contract, printing a letter. The room goes very quiet. Lillian's knees wobble. She grabs the corner of the desk. It is not what it looks like, she says, voice high. I just wanted to test something. I got scared. I am sorry, Father, please, I love you. I did not mean for it to go this far. Richard's hand shakes as he pauses the video. For 15 years. He says slowly. We raised you as our daughter. We trusted you with our home, our name. And this is how you repay us? By framing the girl we took from the mud? By risking the company thousands of people depend on? Tears spill down Lillian's cheeks. They were going to replace me. She sobs. You look at her like she is the sun. You left me in the shadow. I could not go back to nothing. I could not go back to being nobody. Richard's eyes harden. You would have always had a place here, he says. Just not the one that belonged to someone else. You stole her life. Then you tried to steal her future. Julia appears in the doorway, face pale. Is it true? She whispers. Lillian? Before Lillian can answer, the butler steps in, holding a thin folder. Sir, he says quietly. The investigator you hired called with updates. I had him send the file per your request. Richard opens it with numb fingers. A hospital nurse's testimony lies inside, confession ink faded but legible. Lillian's birth mother admitted to switching the babies, desperate to give her daughter a chance at a rich life. Records show secret payments, hidden calls, lies layered on lies. Richard reads, then passes the file to Julia. She knew. He says. Her mother told her. She knew she was not ours and led us believe the opposite. She watched us weep over the wrong child in that hospital hallway. Ella stands very still, every muscle tight. She thought the betrayal in her life ended on that Kansas road. She was wrong. Lillian drops to her knees. Please. Lillian whispers. Do not throw me out. I know I did terrible things, but you are the only family I ever had. Ella feels something like pity flare, then fade. Martha once begged too, when the police cuffs clicked closed. Sorry means little after 15 years of harm. This house gave you everything. Ella says quietly. You chose to use that to hurt people. That was not poverty. That was you. Lillian looks up at her, eyes wild. You took my life. Lillian spits. You took my name, my room, my future. Ella's voice stays calm. They were never yours, she says. You were borrowing them. You just never wanted to return them. The scandal hits fast and hard. The board demands explanations. Richard gives them the truth. The press gets a sanitized version, a security breach, a contract error caught and corrected, an internal review. What they do not see is the bruised look in his eyes when he signs papers severing Lillian's access to every Karen account. Lillian's birth mother is arrested for fraud and conspiracy. Lillian herself is given a choice: accept charges for her part in the contract scheme, or cooperate, testify, and leave with nothing. She chooses to leave. On her last morning at the estate, she stands at the top of the steps with a single suitcase. The staff avoids her eyes. Julia cannot bring herself to hug her. Richard's goodbye is a short nod. Ella watches from the veranda, arms folded. You win. Lillian says bitterly. Happy now? Ella thinks of muddy fields, of belts and bruises, of whisper campaigns in the school cafeteria. She thinks of Lillian's hand tilting the wine glass, the fake letter, the doctored contract. No, Ella says. Nothing about this makes me happy, but it is fair. Lillian laughs, harsh and small. Fair, she repeats. Life was never fair. Not when I was poor. Not when I was rich. Do not pretend you earned everything. You were born into it. Ella steps closer. I was born into it, she says. Then it was stolen from me. I lived 15 years without it. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to be someone who deserves the power I hold. What you do with your second chance is up to you. For a heartbeat, something like shame flickers across Lillian's face. Then the cab arrives, and she turns away. After the gate closes behind the car, the house feels different. Lighter in some ways. Heavier in others. A month later, Richard calls a press conference in the main hall of Karen Holdings. Reporters pack the marble floor, cameras pointed at the dais. Julia stands on one side. Keller stands on the other. Ella stands between them, wearing a tailored suit that fits her exactly. Richard steps to the microphone. 15 years ago. He says. My wife and I lost our daughter, because of a deliberate act by someone we trusted. We did not know. That ignorance did not erase the harm done to her. Today, I want the world to know that harm ends here. He gestures to Ella. This is Ella Karen. He says. My daughter. My heir. The flash of cameras is blinding. Ella keeps her shoulders back, chin level. I did not grow up in this world. She says when it is her turn to speak. I grew up on a farm where my worth was measured in what I could carry. I know hunger. I know fear. I know what it feels like to be told I am nothing. She scans the room, finding the faces of reporters who once wrote about the Karen fortune from a distance. I also know what it feels like to be given a second chance. She says. I intend to use mine. Karen Holdings will be expanding its scholarship program for kids from rural areas and foster homes. We will fund shelters and legal aid for children in abusive situations. If I am going to sit at the top of this ladder, I am going to lower a hand. Later, in the quiet of the roof garden, Keller leans on the railing next to her. The city sprawls below, lit up and humming. You sounded like a CEO. He says. A terrifying, good one. Ella laughs softly. I sounded like a girl who remembers sleeping in a closet. She says. I never want to forget that. Keller bumps his shoulder against hers. I am glad you are here. He says. I was a jerk when you arrived. I believed what I wanted to believe about Lillian. That is on me. Ella tilts her head. You believed what you saw. She says. She was good at acting. So was I. I just learned different roles. Like what? He asks. She smiles, small and sharp. The girl who survives. She says. The girl who fights back. The girl who never kneels. He studies her for a moment, then nods. Then I guess I will just have to be the brother who has your back. He says. Every time. Downstairs, Julia is on the phone with lawyers, setting up the new charity arm. Richard is in the study, sending emails to regional managers, outlining changes. The house is buzzing with the first real work Ella has seen it do that does not center on profit alone. As the wind tugs at her hair, Ella looks out over New York, all steel and glass and neon, and feels something settle inside her. For 15 years she was told she was nothing. Then she was told she was everything. The truth lies somewhere in between. She is just Ella Karen, a girl who crawled out of the mud and into the light, who took back the name stolen from her, who turned her scars into maps so no one else gets lost the same way. Whatever storms come next, she will face them standing. And this time, when the rain falls, it will not be on a girl kneeling in a pig pen. It will be on an heiress who finally came home.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.